Welcome once again to a Tin Dog podcast. Yes, these are quite short, but that's because I've got to fit these and reviewing the TV programme in at the same time. So bear with me, I'll try and be as short and concise and precise as possible. This time I'm covering Destiny of the Doctors Disc 2. Admittedly, this came out in February, so I'm kind of playing catch-up. In the next couple of weeks you'll hear the review of Destiny of the Doctors Disc 3 and indeed Disc 4. Disc 2 covering the Second Doctor, Disc 3 the Third, and, surprisingly, Disc 4, the one in April, covering the Fourth Doctor. Then I'll have caught up and I'll be able to do one review a month. Everything will be hunky and dory. So, this Second Doctor. Now, unlike the First Doctor story, which was set firmly before An Unearthly Child, the Second Doctor story is set slap bang in the centre of Troughton. Now, if ever you say Troughton stories to anyone who's a Doctor Who fan, three little words always pop up. Base under siege. Because that's what you could get away with. That's what you could film. A small place, out of the way, with no hope of rescue, like the moon base, or a wheel in space, or an oil rig platform, or a host of others, where hope cannot come, and they're all cut off, and the Doctor has to stop the menace and save the day. That is the epitome of the Troughton era. Of course, there are some examples of it not being the case whatsoever, but if you think about it, that's what you get. Now, Troughton's no longer with us, and just like the last one, these are Companion Chronicles style stories, albeit that they are almost audiobooks read by someone who played a companion, but with them playing that companion's part in the story, and at least one other voice appearing. In the case of this particular story, we have a Russian scientist. Small casts, small locations, and doctors who just can't appear in the story themselves all lead us to a very, very nice end product. The beauty of Big Finish is that they aren't allowed to deal with the new series. As far as the BBC licence is concerned, their licence finishes in 1996. Thank you very much. Go away, make some Doctor Who. Audio Go's licence, however, does not have that limitation. They've released audiobooks with every single Doctor, dealing with every single storyline. They have the limitations removed. And because this is a Big Finish and Audio Go joint venture, basically the gloves are off. They can do whatever they want with the narrative. They can mention people from the future. Now the nod, or indeed inference, of interference from the future, i.e. our present and present Doctor Who, is very important to the plot, but it's not so important is that you would need to get all of the others to find out what's happening. Similarly, in the first story, a message was sent from the Doctor via the radio to Susan. At the time, it could have been the First Doctor sending a message, but no. Quite clearly, messages sent from the future are a very important part of all these plots. But they're not the be-all and end-all, because Frazer Hines is the one doing this reading, and his characterisation of the Second Doctor, and indeed his impression of the Second Doctor, is second absolutely to none. You have a gift with Frazer Hines, because you have Frazer Hines the actor doing the narration, you have Frazer Hines playing Jamie, not with the same voice as the narration, I hasten to add, that's the important bit, giving you two instant characters, and then you have his impressions of people like Zoe and the rest of the cast of the Moonbase. Only the Russian officer, voiced by another female, manages to be an additional character. Frazer Hines pulls off a magnificent piece of work here. The sound design is never obtrusive, but it's definitely atmospheric. Here we are trapped in a base, near a pulsar, with a group of Earthlings trapped in a timey-wimey thing. Shadows are creeping. The story feels like Silence in the Library. In fact, it feels like someone watched the first episode of Silence in the Library and tried to figure out what was happening, wrote it all down, and then went away and kept that in a notebook. And then when they came to write this story, they got that notebook out and went, here's what I think could have happened in Silence of the Library. That's how close it is. Strange shadows coming to get you. The atmosphere is practically black and white, and on radio, that's what matters. Again, I don't want to spoil it, but it does work perfectly. This range has been great, so if you've been toying with the idea of a companion chronicle, but the fact that there are 80 of them has kind of put you off, don't try them. Try these, and if you enjoy these, then try a companion chronicle, because there's only 11 of these, and then that's it. The Destiny of the Doctor really does work. And so I'll fade away and let you get on with reviews of something else, probably new Doctor Who. So until next time, be seeing you. You've been listening to the Tin Dog Podcast. Doctor Who and its connected properties are copyright and trademark of the BBC. No infringement is intended. To contact the show, email tin-dog@hotmail.co.uk. Whostrology, a Time Traveller's Almanac, is available through Telos Publishing or Amazon. Visit www.whostrology.com for further information. The Tin Dog Podcast is a founder member of the Doctor Who Podcast Alliance.
Today we're going to introduce you to a genius with a difference.
A real trailblazer who helped revolutionise the way that modern music was made.
Pioneering techniques that produce sounds that we'd never heard before.
And she produced possibly one of the most famous pieces of music in this country.
Today's genius helped create the most iconic TV theme tune of all time, Doctor Who.
What did you say?
And when Doctor Who hit our screens back in 1963, it was the first time that most people had ever heard electronic music. It was groundbreaking.
But she didn't just come up with a catchy tune. In fact, she didn't even write it. It was the way she made it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we give you Delia Derbyshire.
Hello, chaps!
This is a journey into sound.
Born in 1937, Delia grew up during World War II.
Delia loved music, but music back then was very traditional, played by orchestras, and nothing like the electronic tunes that she'd go on to create.
Along with music, maths was her other passion, and she graduated with a degree in, yep, you guessed it, maths and music from Cambridge University.
First, it's the simplest sound of all, which is a sine wave.
Having finished university, she got a job at the BBC in a new department called the Radiophonic Workshop.
The workshop's purpose was to provide unusual music and sound effects for TV and radio.
Of course, shows had used music and sound long before the workshop existed, but it all tended to be much more traditional.
Hello, darling. How was your day?
Marvellous, thank you. I went to the market.
Oh, did you see anything nice?
Yes. I bought a horse. Brian.
Brian the horse?
Stop this!
Of course, traditional sound effects like these were very effective and are still used today in radio plays to Hollywood movies.
But by the early 1960s, TV programmes were getting more adventurous and needed sounds and music to match.
Back then, space travel was new and exciting. The public was fascinated by the idea of new worlds.
And all this was happening at the same time as Doctor Who was launched. But programmes about aliens needed alien sounds.
Thankfully, though, new technology meant that by the time Doctor Who was ready to hit our screens, there was a brand new generation of young, new musicians.
And these geniuses were Delia and the Radiophonic Workshoppers.
The Radiophonic's genius idea was to make music and sound effects that no one in the world had ever heard before.
Using unusual recording equipment, they created strange sounds, such as the sound of spaceships, monsters and aliens, and of course, the sound of the TARDIS.
No, still don't get it.
We needed some serious help.
Is this really important, Tate?
And we found it, in the form of genius composer Mark Ayres, who worked at the Radiophonic Workshop and even knew Delia.
We've been looking around the building at all these machines, but what do they actually do?
Well, these are quarter-inch tape machines. On here, I've got a very simple tone. One note. If I double the speed of the tape machine, it's gone up an octave. If I halve the speed of the tape machine, it's gone down an octave. Now, If I play it and start varying the speed while we do it... Here we go.
So you can actually make a tune by just... That is a bit of a tune, isn't it? Just by going faster and slower.
And that's the start of making music with tape.
And what a start it was. But Mark was about to pull something out of the bag that would blow our minds.
Guess what that is?
What is it? Let's have a look.
That is the
Doctor Who,
original master tape.
Original theme tune?
Wow.
What year is this from?
1963.
Wow. Don't drop it! Surely it wouldn't still work, though.
Of course it did.
That sounds a bit like the tone I was playing with earlier.
Absolutely. Done exactly the same way, varying the speed of tone and adding some echo to it.
Her music was so ahead of its time that it still inspires electro music acts today, like Orbital, who, with a little help from the Doctor, played their version of Delia's famous tune at a recent festival. The truth was that although we love our music, we're more about the dancing.
But what we have found out is that Delia Derbyshire, you were an absolute genius.
Thank you, boys.